What happens when a former duchess sits across from late night's most controversial host, and the masks come off? Tonight, we unravel the fictional face-off that had everyone talking. Meghan Markle versus Bill Maher, from calm politeness to emotional outbursts. What started as a regular interview spiraled into one of the most raw and intense confrontations in modern talk show history. Cameras rolled, emotions flared, and before it was over, one of them walked off the set. Was it harsh truth or public bullying? A necessary breakdown or a media circus? This is the full breakdown of that shocking moment, told in 6 gripping parts. Stick around till the end, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful stories that blur the line between truth and perception. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Was Meghan wrong to walk off? Or did Bill Maher go too far? The studio was buzzing. Bright lights beat down on the set of Real Time, the audience murmuring with excitement as the camera light turned red. Bill Maher leaned back in his chair, calm and collected like he always is, a smirk already playing on his face. He looked ready, maybe even too ready. This wasn't going to be a soft, friendly talk. Across from him sat Meghan Markle. She was poised, polished, every hair in place. Her posture was straight, her smile perfectly trained. The kind of smile that says, "I'm in control." Even after everything, leaving the royal family, stepping away from the spotlight, the media storms, she still looked like someone who knew how to handle herself in front of cameras. She gave off the calm of someone who had practiced this moment 100 times. But even the most trained performers can't prepare for someone like Maher. He welcomed her with polite charm, throwing in a few light jokes to keep the crowd laughing. It felt normal. Too normal. Then, just as the mood settled, he tilted his head and asked the question that changed everything. "You've talked a lot about your truth, your side of the story. But let me ask you this. When does your truth stop being truth and start being just convenient?" The room changed. The audience didn't laugh. Meghan's smile didn't fade, but her eyes told a different story. Sharp, focused, like someone who had just been challenged in a way they didn't expect. That one question cut through the atmosphere like a knife. This wasn't just a celebrity interview. It wasn't going to be another light talk about mental health or Hollywood or what it's like living in Montecito. No, this was going to be personal. This was going to hurt. Bill Maher had fired the first shot, and the look in his eyes said he wasn't going to stop there. Meghan adjusted slightly in her seat. Her fingers tightened around the arms of the chair. She answered with grace, but even she knew this wasn't the beginning of a normal conversation. This was the start of something else. Something raw. Something that might not end with a smile. The tension that had started with a single question now had weight. It wasn't just the words. It was the way Bill leaned in slightly, eyes locked on Meghan, voice steady but sharp. He wasn't raising his voice. He didn't need to. His words carried power all on their own. "You married into the most elite family on earth," he said calmly, almost like he was stating a simple fact. "You weren't trapped, you were chosen. Millions of people would trade places with you in a second. And yet here you are, acting like a victim." Meghan didn't flinch. Not yet. She took a breath, adjusted the bracelet on her wrist, then looked him straight in the eye. "Privilege doesn't erase trauma," she said, voice steady. "I wasn't protected. I was exposed. Every time I tried to speak up, I was told to stay quiet. That it wasn't royal behavior to have emotions, to cry, to say this hurts. I was smiling for cameras while breaking on the inside." Bill leaned back. "Come on," he said, shaking his head slightly. "You had a global stage, an army of PR people, a fairy tale wedding watched by billions. And now you live in a mansion in Montecito. That's not pain, that's a brand." The audience didn't laugh. This wasn't a joke. Meghan's face stayed calm, but her voice changed. It got quieter, more real. You know what people didn't see? She asked. The nights I stayed awake, thinking the world would be better off without me. The mornings where I couldn't get out of bed because another tabloid had printed a lie so cruel I couldn't breathe. People saw the dresses, the photo ops, the smiles. They didn't see the thoughts I was having behind the scenes. Ma raised an eyebrow. You mean thoughts of... Yes, she said simply. I thought about ending it. More than once. The room was silent. You could hear someone shift in their seat. Meghan continued, voice raw but strong. People see the photos, the money, the titles, and think it must be easy. But you can't buy peace of mind. You can't buy kindness. And in that palace, behind those gates, I felt more alone than I ever have in my life. Ma sat still for a moment. Then, with a slight shrug, he said, But you still left with millions in deals. Netflix, Spotify, interviews, books. You didn't disappear into quiet healing. You built an empire around your pain. That's not fair, Meghan said, and this time her voice cracked just a little. I tried to use my story to help other people feel less alone. I didn't want pity. I wanted change. But you didn't just tell your story, Ma replied. You sold it. The blow landed hard. Meghan looked away for a moment, as if steadying herself. Her hands gripped the arms of the chair a little tighter. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. The pain on her face wasn't fake. It wasn't polished or prepped. It was real. This wasn't a debate about facts anymore. This was about how people see the world differently. One from the lens of cold logic and hard truth, and the other from the inside of lived pain that no headline could ever fully explain. Two people, two worlds, and one conversation that was only just getting started. Meghan's voice had stayed steady through most of the interview, but something was starting to change. It was in the way her shoulders tensed, the way her fingers stopped adjusting her bracelet and started gripping the arm of the chair instead. Her smile was gone now, replaced with something harder to define. Not anger, not sadness, something in between. Something heavy. Ma noticed it too. He leaned forward again, elbows on the table, his tone shifting from curious to cutting. So you ran, he said. Things got hard, and you walked away. You played the victim. And then you turned it into a business. Oprah, Netflix, Spotify, book deals. It's all content now. Everything that hurt you has a price tag attached to it. That hit something deep. Meghan sat up straighter, eyes wide with disbelief. I didn't play anything, she said, her voice rising for the first time. I shared my story because I was drowning. I thought if I talked about it, maybe someone else who was struggling would feel less alone. I didn't sell my pain, I survived it. Ma didn't flinch. No, he replied, flat and cold. You weaponized it. You took your pain and used it to get clicks, to build a brand, to stay relevant. A murmur ran through the audience. A few people shifted in their seats. Others leaned forward. Nobody was smiling anymore. The room had turned into something else, heavier, quieter, sharper. People weren't just watching. They were holding their breath. Meghan looked stunned. For a moment, she said nothing. Then, quietly but firmly, she said, You don't know what it's like to be gaslit by an entire system. To be told you're imagining the hate, imagining the danger, imagining the hurt, while it's happening right in front of you. You think I walked away because I was weak? I walked away because I didn't want to die in that house. She paused, her voice trembling now. I didn't want to become another silent story people forget. I wanted to live. And yes, I told the world about what happened to me. But not for money. I did it because nobody protected me when I needed it most. Ma's eyes narrowed slightly. But they gave you everything, he said. Title, spotlight, platform. And when that wasn't enough, you made your own. You built an identity around being mistreated. And now, if anyone questions your version of the story, they're labeled racist or cruel. You're twisting it, Meghan said, her voice strained. You're acting like I planned this. Like I wrote some script and followed it for fame. I was trying to hold myself together while everything around me fell apart. But you still had cameras there when it did. Mar snapped back. You still made sure the world saw your pain, your tears, your side. And let's be honest, when you tell the story first, you get to control the ending. That line hit her hard. Meghan looked away, blinking quickly. Her hand went to her face, as if trying to hide the emotion building up behind her eyes. The audience sat in stunned silence. The bright lights felt colder now. Even the camera operator seemed to hesitate, unsure whether they were filming an interview or watching someone fall apart. I didn't want to control anything, she said finally, voice quiet but filled with heat. I just wanted to be believed. The words hung there, heavy and personal. But Mar wasn't finished. Wanting to be believed is one thing. Demanding everyone else be silent while you tell your version, that's something else. She looked at him, eyes wet, breathing heavy. You think I enjoyed this? You think I wanted to cry in front of millions of people? I was trying to survive. And now you're thriving off it, he said, not angrily, but almost like he was stating something obvious. That's the part nobody wants to say out loud. You turned your worst days into a brand, and now nobody's allowed to question it. Something in Meghan broke in that moment. Not loudly, not with yelling, but in the way her jaw clenched, in the way her eyes filled with tears she no longer tried to hide. Her wall, carefully built through years of media training, interviews, and PR, was cracking. I didn't ask for any of this, she whispered, but I'm done apologizing for surviving. And just like that, the air in the room changed again. The debate was no longer about fame or media or money. It was about pain, and what people are allowed to do with it once they've lived through it. The room was already tense, but what happened next pushed everything past the line. Meghan had just finished saying she was done apologizing for surviving when Mar leaned forward, his voice low but sharp, almost too calm. You know what I see, he said. Every disagreement with you becomes racism. Every critic is called a bigot. That's your shield. That's how you shut people down. It's how you stay in control of the story. Meghan froze. The audience did too. No one moved. You could hear someone's chair creak in the silence. The energy shifted instantly, from tense to something colder, heavier. Even the air felt different. Meghan blinked hard. Excuse me. Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the silence like glass. She wasn't sure if she was more shocked or hurt. Maybe both. Mar didn't stop. You've built your life like a movie, he continued. And in your version, you're always the brave hero. And everyone else, your dad, your in-laws, the press, they're all villains. Every single one. Doesn't that seem a little convenient? The audience gasped. Not loudly, not all at once, but enough that the sound filled the space. Even the cameramen looked like they didn't know what to do. Meghan didn't answer right away. Her lips parted slightly, like she wanted to say something, but the words didn't come. She looked down, then back up. Her eyes were glassy, and her voice was thin, like it was barely holding together. Maybe I am the problem, she said. The words hung there, too quiet at first. Maybe everyone's right about me. The sentence landed harder than anything else had. Even Mar didn't speak for a moment. Her voice cracked in the middle of it, like the truth behind it hurt more than she was ready for. Her hands were shaking slightly. She didn't even try to hide it anymore. I've tried so hard to do the right thing, she said, her voice uneven. I try to fit into a family that never accepted me. I try to speak up about pain I wasn't supposed to talk about. I thought I could use my story to help people feel less alone. But maybe all I've done is make people angry. Mar looked at her carefully, his tone a little less cold now, but still direct. Or maybe, he said, you've just never stopped performing. Maybe every time you feel pain, instead of sitting with it, you turn it into a platform. You sell it. You repackage it into another special, another interview. That made Meghan flinch. She looked down at her lap, breathing hard now. Her face was pale. This wasn't about PR anymore. This wasn't some talk show argument. This was raw. It felt like a wound being pulled open, right there under the lights. The audience didn't cheer. They didn't clap. They just watched, locked in the moment, not knowing which way it would go next. Meghan had come into the room polished and composed. Now she looked like someone who'd just been pushed to the edge of something she didn't expect to face. Not here, not now. And still, she didn't walk away. Not yet. She just sat there, trying to hold herself together, realizing that this conversation had stopped being about public image a long time ago. This was something else now, something much deeper and far more painful. The heat in the room had finally cooled, but not because things were resolved. It was because something inside Meghan had started to break, not in anger, but in realization. Her words had stopped coming quickly. Her face, once tight with frustration, now looked lost. She was no longer trying to win. She was trying to understand herself. Ma saw it. His tone shifted, not soft exactly, but quieter. More human. Less attack, more observation. "You don't even know who you are anymore, do you?" he asked gently. Meghan didn't answer right away. She stared ahead, not really looking at him or anyone else. She wiped her face slowly, the tears still coming. Not dramatic, just steady. "I don't," she said, almost like she was admitting it to herself for the first time. Without the cameras, the media attention, the interviews. "I don't know what's left. I don't know how to be normal. I don't know how to just be a person." It wasn't defensive. It wasn't rehearsed. It was the rawest thing she'd said all night. Maher nodded slightly. "You turned your pain into a business," he said quietly. "You built a brand out of being misunderstood. And now it's all you know. You forgot how to live without the spotlight." That didn't come with sarcasm or judgment. It was more like someone telling a hard truth, because no one else would. Meghan nodded slowly. The fight was gone from her voice. What remained was something softer, something closer to surrender, but not in a weak way, in a real way. She wasn't trying to fix the moment anymore. She was letting herself sit in it. "I didn't mean for it to become this," she said, "but I got so used to defending myself, to always being on, that I forgot how to just be quiet. I forgot how to feel something without explaining it to the world." She reached for a tissue and dabbed at her face, then looked up, not at Maher, but at no one in particular. "Maybe it's time I stop talking and start healing." It was the first thing she'd said all night that sounded like peace. Not because it solved anything, but because it stopped trying to. The room was still. Not tense anymore. Just still. Even Maher didn't speak for a moment. The lights seemed a little softer. The audience sat back in their seats, watching a woman finally stop performing. There was no dramatic music, no applause, no sudden shift. Just a heavy, calm silence. The kind that comes when something real has just happened, and everyone knows it. Meghan sat there for a moment longer, the light still bright, her hands resting on her lap, no longer clenched, no longer shaking. Her eyes were red, but the tears had stopped. What was left on her face wasn't shame or anger. It was something else. Clarity, maybe. Or just exhaustion. She slowly stood up from her chair. Not in a rush. Not in protest. Just quietly, like someone who had nothing left to say. "This might be the last interview I ever do," she said, her voice steady again, but softer than it had been all night. Maybe for a long time. Maybe ever. She looked at Maher, and for the first time, there was no defense in her eyes. No performance. Just a kind of tired honesty that you don't often see on camera. Maher looked back at her, arms still crossed, that usual edge in his expression now gone. "You might finally find peace," he said, when the cameras stopped rolling. It didn't sound like a jab. It sounded real, maybe even respectful. For all the words they'd thrown at each other, for all the fire between them, this last exchange felt calm, almost like they both understood something now that they hadn't at the start. There was no dramatic storm-off, no shouting, no applause. Meghan simply nodded, gave one last look around the studio, not at the audience, not at the cameras, but at the space where everything had happened, and walked off the stage. No spotlight followed her. No music played. The door didn't slam behind her. It was just quiet, and maybe that's what made it feel real. She had arrived polished, rehearsed, armored. She left stripped down to the truth, whatever that truth really was. Not everyone in the room agreed with her. Not everyone watching would either. But for once, she wasn't trying to win them over. She wasn't trying to explain anything. She just left. And that silence, that stillness, spoke louder than any soundbite. So the question now is simple. Did Meghan finally find her truth, or did she just escape the noise again? It's hard to say. Maybe both. But one thing is clear. Sometimes the harshest truths are the ones we spend our whole lives running from, and sometimes we have to hear them out loud before we can even begin to heal. And in that studio, under all those lights, something broke open. Not to entertain, not to shock, but to remind us, under the fame, under the headlines, under the layers of image, we're all just people trying to make sense of our pain. This wasn't about who had the better comeback, or who won the debate. This was about what happens when the image cracks and something real comes through. When the mask slips, not for drama, but because someone finally stops pretending. If this story made you pause, made you feel something, hit subscribe. We tell stories that go deeper, that stick with you. Now tell us in the comments, was this truth-telling or something more painful?